Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 280 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, starting with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. What's up today, Richard?
Hey Seth, just catching up on a lot of Core 2021 previews.
Yeah, we are smack dab in the middle of Core Set 2021 previews, so that's the main topic for our cast for today. But before we get into that, we have another co-host in Krim. How's it going this morning, Krim?
Wonderful. This is Core 2021. This is the set I've been waiting for. I'm pretty hyped on this set.
I am pretty hyped for this set too, and this set, being M21, is going to be the main topic of our podcast today. We're going to talk new spoiler cards and about the set in general. If we have time, we'll sneak in a couple of fish mail at the end, but really, going to be a Core Set 2021 style cast. So, before we jump into all these sweet new cards, a reminder that our show today is once again brought to you by Spikes Academy, the world's first MTG online academy, and their courses are created by the best players in the world, and they're designed for you to improve your game. So whether you're trying to reach Mythic each season on Arena, or you just want to beat your friends in every draft, their courses will help you improve your game. So join today over at spikesacademy.com. So big thanks to Spikes Academy for supporting the podcast today, and let's talk some new Magic cards. Richard, why don't you guide us through our huge list of M21 spoilers?
All right, we're just going to jump straight into it. We'll talk about new mechanics and new things as they come up. But Core 2021 is a reprint set, remember? So we're going to go over some of the new cards. We're going to go over some of the key reprints that are making their way into Standard, and then subsequently Historic, Pioneer, Modern, etc. So we'll start off with Basri Ket, a new white planeswalker. Gideon is dead. Someone needed to bring balance to the color wheel for planeswalkers. So we have Basri Ket, 1 white, 3 starting loyalty. +1, put a +1/+1 counter on 1 target creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn. -2, whenever 1 or more non-token creatures attack this turn, create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. -6, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, and then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control.
Ooh, this card is very much so, like, it feels sort of like a Gideon, right? And yeah, as you had mentioned, with no Gideon here, like, somebody's got to do the Gideon work.
Someone's got to do the white weenie work, okay?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I love the artwork on this card. I think like his how he's like, I don't know, got this like sand spiral, like sandball thing that he's about to shoot at somebody, I think is pretty cool. But like on top of that, it's not flashy, but I think the card's pretty good. It doesn't do anything crazy. That -2 I think seems pretty sweet. I'm kind of a fan. A lot of white weenie style cards getting reprinted or getting added into the pool with Core 21.
Yeah, I think Basri Ket's pretty sweet. It reminds me the most of a Johnny Caller of the Pride, actually. It has, like, almost exactly the same +1 but upgraded, where you put a counter on things, and that has a negative ability that, Johnny is more about going tall on one big creature, but, Basri's -2 can be really good at going wide. Like, you can potentially, it has kind of the Winota style trigger, so you're getting a token for each non-token that's attacking, so it can potentially be a lot of creatures for free, and then the ultimate doesn't win quickly, but it will eventually win you the game. So it seems like a good option for white weenie or maybe token style decks. A little awkward in tokens just because it wants you to have non-tokens in your deck. So it needs like Hero of Precinct 1 style cards, like non-token creatures that create token creatures is probably the easiest way to go rather than just like raise the alarm style effects. But I don't know. I think it'll see play. I think it'll definitely see play for sure once Gideon rotates. I think it's maybe like competing for a similar slot right now. And I honestly don't know which one's better, but it definitely seems of a power level where it can see some standard play.
We're talking about 3-mana Gideon, right? From War of the Spark?
Yeah.
Oh, I think this just immediately takes over. Whatever deck that was playing Gideon, in standard at least, is I mean, I don't know. Like, do you think they kind of like really compete for the same spot? I don't really. I think Basri will go into just if Basri goes in a different deck, it could also just replace Gideon entirely. I think because this just seems better.
Do you think so? Well, Gideon, though, you get the 4/4, like, attacker for 3. When Basri, the problem with Basri, so, okay, here's the difference I see. Gideon is actually one of your best cards on an empty board. Like, you can have an empty board and play Gideon, and it's pretty solid. Basri, on an empty board, not as exciting. You need to have some creatures going on for Basri to really do anything. So maybe they do go in different style of decks to some extent. That's my only concern with Basri is, like, your opponent rests your board or something and you want to follow up with a Planeswalker. Basri's not the most exciting follow-up to that scenario.
True. But Basri's not great there. But like let's say like on the play or something like that, like this is you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you get to swing, put, like, like, let's say you have, like, a creature or 2 on the board, and then you drop Basri, and then you just -2, get a few more creatures out of it. Then you don't have to really deploy any more threats. So then you just kind of sit back and hold, and then just wait until they do eventually sweep. And then you just deploy your threats again, right?
And then you have nothing. I don't know. I think for that reason, Basri is actually really bad. I'm not even going to give him the playable pass because, like, on a curve out, you go turn 1, 1-drop, turn 2, a 2-drop, or you do like a token generator, which doesn't help with Basri, right? Basri turn 3, that's a 3-mana sorcery speed, raise the alarm, that's attacking, right? Like, that's not very exciting on an empty board, does literally nothing. So I don't know. This is not aggressive enough for me in standard. Like, you can't win the game or snowball off of a Basri unless you want to, like, super commit, right? Like, if you put 4 or 5 1-drops on the battlefield and attack in Basri, fine, but 1 Wrath and you're done. And the fact that Basri doesn't recover by himself off a Wrath makes it even worse. So I don't know. And then that ultimate is pretty slow. You need to get up to 6, and then you don't really die immediately. Like, you only die if there's a board, right? It's like a Cathar's Crusade. But if it's an empty board, it takes a while to kill someone. And, that gives them ample opportunity to, expansion explosion your face or whatever crazy power creep cards we're going to see. So I actually don't really like this as a white weenie card. Maybe more of a combo piece or something. Like, Winota triggers off those tokens. They're not human tokens. They're just soldier tokens. So maybe you can somehow leverage these abilities into a combo. But as white weenie player, like, I don't want this. This doesn't get my opponent dead.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm in the middle of you two. It sounds like Krim really likes it. You don't like it. I think it'll be okay, but I'm not expecting it to be like an Oko or a staple Planeswalker of Standard. More like maybe some archetypes will want a couple copies.
You got to play like 4 Fairy Miscreants or something and then go into Basri.
Hey, maybe Azorius Flyers can use this. You never, because remember that flash, that is pretty nice in that deck. But so far, I'm not like this card is gonna like completely change the meta either. But I do think that it's definitely it could be a 1, like 2 of in the deck.
All right, next up, how about a card we know Krim is excited about? We have Teferi, Master.
Oh, this card sucks.
Of Time. So the focus of Core 2021 is Teferi, and we have Teferi, and we have 9 versions of the same card. There's like 4 arts.
Whoa.
We have 4 arts, and then there's like the borderless version of them, and they all kind of look the same. Well, some of like 4 of them look the same with like I don't know what's going on. It's like the Doctor Strange symbol things going on in front of them like are different.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take a look at it. But Teferi, Master of Time, 2 blue. So 4 CMC. Get ready with the Jace the Mind Sculptor comparisons. 3 starting loyalty.
This is not
static
Jace.
Ability. You may activate loyalty abilities of Teferi on any player's turn anytime you can cast an instant. +1 to draw a card, then discard a card. -3, target creature you don't control phases out. -10, take 2 extra turns after this one.
So, on the static ability, it's activate the loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time. not
Oh, yes,
all
yes, yes.
Teferis.
Not all
As much
Teferis.
as I wish that were a thing. Like,
Oh goodness!
how cool would that have been, right?
No, that would not be cool, Krim.
Okay, sorry, my bad. I guess I have a different idea of
Teferi
cool.
doesn't like playing with the rules of Magic. He's like, forget it, guys. I'm casting instant speed planeswalker abilities.
You're the master of time. You do what you want. No, like I think this is really sweet because first off, we can activate once on our turn, pass, and obviously if we go into like commander, then that means you get an activation every turn. But like I think that's really cool. Being able like this is something I've always wanted, like 6 mana Teferi, right? Temporal Archmage. You had to ultimate an emblem to get the ability to activate the planeswalker abilities at any point, right? But I always wanted a Teferi that could do that on its own, and maybe just on its own, or all Teferis along with it. I mean, so this I think is sweet. Getting to loot on my turn and then doing it on my opponent's turn, and or loot on my turn and then phase something out. I mean, I am curious to see how people handle phasing, because I have not played, I don't think, in a standard format where I got to actually play with phasing. I think, what was that? What's the format with the set with the shovel? Like, or it looks like a shovel. I don't remember. But like I wasn't playing standard then, so it'll be cool to see some amount of phasing now. We joked about it. Like, how many times have we all said, oh, how funny would it be if there was a return to phasing because Teferi, right, in Core 21. Now we'll see. Maybe Teferi's Isle gets reprinted. And the take 2 extra turns after this one. Sure. Why not? For me, mostly, I just like the +1 and the -3. The ultimate is just like, all right, sure, maybe. If we get there, then I guess I really win the game.
I think that phasing is a little different than phase out. I'm kind of actually glad they did it this way. I don't think we're going to see like phasing, which is just like really complicated and weird. Phase out though seems pretty intuitive to me. Like the creature just doesn't go away. And I know Mark Rosewater said that part of the reason they brought back phasing, or phase out rather, is to power down enter the battlefield effects, essentially. Like, so you're not getting the enter the battlefield trigger. So maybe we'll see more experiments with like phasing out creatures rather than blinking creatures as we move forward. Yeah. As far as Teferi itself, I actually breathed a sigh of relief when I saw this. I was worried that Wizards was going to print another, like, we're coming off Teferi Hero of Dominaria and then Teferi Time Raveler, which have not only been really good in Standard, but pretty widely disliked as far as being in Standard.
Wait,
I was
what?
afraid we were going to have, well, except you don't count, Grim, except for you. I know you love Teferi, but in general, but I was afraid we were going to get another, like, obviously miserable Teferi. This card doesn't feel obviously miserable to me. This feels like a solid blue planeswalker with a cool twist that you can activate its ability at instant speed. But I don't have any fear that this is going to, like, break Standard. I think it'll definitely see play, and it's cool that it gets even better in Commander when you have 3 opponents and can activate it 4 times each turn cycle, which is super sweet. But I'm actually not worried about this. This doesn't feel like a card to me that is going to be banned or even really feel that oppressive. I don't know. When Teferi, like, Hero of Dominaria hit the battlefield, I just died a little bit inside every time, like, oh no. But I don't think I'm going to have that reaction with Teferi Time Master, or Master of Time. It feels like a reasonably good card, but not a broken or oppressive card to me.
Yeah, I don't think this is broken at all. I think this is just, as you had mentioned, just a solid blue planeswalker. But I'm excited because now Grixis can have a Teferi in the deck. Obviously, like, the -3, because it only phases out a creature. It's not the same as being able to bounce an enchantment artifact, and it's not or creature. And then of course, Hero of Dominaria being able to tuck anything, pretty solid.
Yeah. So about phasing, it's intuitive to Seth because you've played Magic for like a million years, but when something phases in, wouldn't you think the ETB triggers like as a new player?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
how does this make anything clear, right? Like it doesn't say on the reminder text. So I feel that's going to cause so much confusion as people phase things in, and for their entire lives, when something enters the battlefield, like literally enters the battlefield, triggers. So I think that's confusing. And then we joked about this before. Wait till you phase out a token with like a with an artifact attached to it, right? So there are a lot of complications with this. It's kind of like mutate. Like the most basic ability kind of makes sense, but as you start getting to edge cases, things get a little wonky. So I'm surprised about phasing back. It's like too much power creep on ETB triggers. So like they're like, oh, we'll bring phasing back. Kind of like there's so much power creep in the graveyard. They try to move everything to exile. And then they're like, wait, we can bring back things from the exile now. So exile's a new graveyard. And you're like, what is the difference between these two zones now? I don't know. So weird, but I'll take it. But I think Teferi is actually sneakily powerful because this is the first time you can plop a Planeswalker down and then change your murder to a Doomblade or something like that, right? Or not murder. What's a sorcery speed Doomblade? Dreadbore? I don't know.
Dreadbore,
Right?
okay, yeah.
Sure.
So now like you can't like say suit up an Embercleave or something, or you can't like hasten a creature. Like you can use the phase out at instant speed, and I think that secretly makes something very powerful, right? Like take any instant
Questing beast.
exactly, right? Take any instant in Magic, right? And then convert it to a sorcery. It's terrible, right? Take any sorcery, convert it to an instant. You're like, oh, automatic upgrade. So the fact that his -3 is an instant now, I think is pretty interesting. And then we'll see where it goes. But I think this starts at like solidly playable and can go into so annoying and broken to play against. It'll depend.
It all like in defense or of that point, you know, Hero of Dominaria when it was revealed was just an average 5-mana planeswalker to most people. just remember that.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah.
I think it's worth saying though, it does have low loyalty. That is kind of like part of the reason I'm not super scared. It only comes in at 3. Yes, it technically kind of
Goes to
pluses
5.
2 if you do it twice, but then it's just getting run over. Also important, it doesn't actually generate card advantage, and I think that's a pretty big difference. Like looting compared to actually drawing an extra card is a pretty big downgrade. So I don't know. I could be wrong. I've seen other people that are like, this card is going to get banned. How many formats will it get banned in? I don't see it, but I could definitely, I don't have the best track record when it comes to blue planeswalkers during spoiler season. So I could definitely be the one that's wrong on it.
I mean, I've fanboyed every Teferi, and it's paid off for my end. So, you know, why stop now? But this is also the same way I ended up at Jace Living Guild Pact. I was like, there hasn't been a bad Jace yet, so I'm gonna like buy a ton of these Jaces. I was wrong. I was very wrong with that Jace. but yeah, like I think looting is something that is very important in other formats, right? Like being able to discard, that's pretty good. So we'll see if more things benefit from you being able to throw away a card in your hand.
You can now trigger miracles or something at instant speed. I don't know. I don't know about older formats. I think standard will be solid. I don't know about getting into modern or pioneer or legacy vintage, things like that. So maybe not as good as 3 fairy. But
I mean, Jace the Mind Sculptor, whatever format that is in, I don't think, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's going to take the place of this easily. So.
All right. Next up, we have Liliana, Waker of the Dead, 4 black, 4 starting loyalty, +1. Each player discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life. -3, target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is a number of cards in your graveyard. -7, you get an emblem with at the beginning of combat on your turn, put target creature from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste.
I'm kind of meh on Liliana. Like
They used all their power creep onto Fairy.
Yeah.
Liliana's got nothing.
No passive?
It's not a bad
Have we
card.
been spoiled by Word of the Spark?
It's not bad. I mean, it has a +1 that's like an upgrade on Liliana the Veil, and that's a powerful plus ability. You get removal to protect it. The ultimate is good. I don't know. It doesn't jump off the cardboard for me as being like super powerful, but I also think it's probably fine.
Like
I
that
liked
minus is not
Ongath.
removal.
Yeah.
They they play a Lovestruck Beast. You're like, oh, have I milled 5 cards in my graveyard by turn 4? Nope.
Unless you have a way to loot. Blue-black control. Maybe. No, like I think this card is very, very medium. Like that +1, like I'll play it because I mean I played Ongrath, right? And like, but that -3 is I don't know. The fact that it's 4 mana, that -3 isn't always removal. Then again, you know, like Liliana of the Veil's -2 isn't removal against Lovestruck Beast either if they have the token, right?
Yeah, I mean the point here was Liliana of the Veil sucked in standard. Right?
That's
like,
true.
We forget
That's
this
true.
point. Like, not good in standard. Not good when
Yeah.
your opponent plays lots of creatures and is trying to attack
Lingering
you.
Souls laughed at you all the time.
Yep.
And so, yeah. I mean, this one at least you can kind of target, so maybe.
Yes, I'll play my 4 mana Planeswalker and remove your human token and hope you can't attack with Lovestruck Beast. Yes.
Hey, you could have discovered.
I mean, the dream here is you like Kroxa into Lily and you play some weird 8-rack type deck with this, but I think that's like way too slow for standard. Like by turn 4, like your opponent is like hellbent and like about to combo off and kill you. So I don't know. Like just one card is not good.
I mean, we have like reasonably on curve ways to fill the gray, like Mire Triton, for example. That's a card that's pretty playable in its own right and just incidentally powers up Liliana. So I think maybe I don't think you just play this in any deck, but I think you could build around it. We have a decent amount of fill the graveyard support. We still have like Ravnica stuff around when we had like Undergrowth is still a mechanic. So there is some payoffs for being a graveyard based deck. Is that deck going to be good? Probably not, but I think people will try it, and it might be like a tier 3 deck that you can play. Some sort of like Golgari graveyard deck with the Liana or something.
I see this being a sideboard card. I think it could potentially get some play. I mean, like, think about how Davriel sees play. Yes, I see that there's that rack effect from Davriel, right? But that's like, this is like, and like, this is just better, right? I mean, it is 1 mana more, but
it doesn't run out of loyalty so quickly.
Like being able to just sit there and play around a Davriel, like just by holding on to cards, like that, because eventually they can't downtick anymore. But like Lily keeps going up and is removal, but the 3 mana, 4 mana difference is the thing.
All right. Next up, we have Chandra, Heart of Fire, 3 red, 5 starting loyalty. +1, discard your hand, then exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may play cards exiled this way. +1, Chandra deals 2 damage to any target. -9, search your graveyard and library for any number of red instants or sorceries, exile them, then shuffle your library. You may cast them this turn, add 6 red.
Chandra's insane. I think this might be one of my favorite, mostly, almost exclusively, because I think +1 draw 3 cards is really powerful. Like that, yes, you gotta discard your hand, so you gotta play it in like, I don't know, Gruul, mono red, some sort of aggro deck where you're gonna have Chandra as the top end of your curve. You're not gonna play it in a control deck where you want to hold counter spells. But +1 draw 3 cards, even with the restriction, you gotta play them that turn. That is a really powerful +1 ability.
Dredge got a new toy. Yep.
I don't know if Dredge wants to get to 5 mana.
Oh no, you just have to say it. It's mandatory. Every new set, there's got to be a new Dredge card. Also, the other thing that's gonna go quite a long way for me is that second ability is also a +1.
Yeah.
Being able to deal 2 to any target, I think that's really good. And let's not forget that we still have cards like Arclight Phoenix in the format, right? And I don't know. I mean, every new set I do try to see if Arclight Phoenix is even better now. Maybe Arclight Phoenix is too fair, but I do think that like the discarding your hand may not be as bad as it sounds after we use it a few times.
Also, you can live the dream now in standard of curving out Chandra's you can play Chandra's Regulator on turn 2 into 3 mana Chandra, 4 mana Chandra, 5 mana Chandra, 6 mana Chandra, all the way up the Chandra curve. So
Big Red, here we go.
All right. Next up, we have Teferi's Tutelage. This card has a mechanic on it we want to discuss. It's 2 and a blue, uncommon, blue enchantment. When Teferi's Tutelage enters the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent mills 2 cards. Yes, the card actually says mills 2 cards on it. Mill is now a keyword in Magic.
That is probably my favorite thing about this card so far. And like, I mean, obviously, I I think that it's cool that they're acknowledging and changing that to mill. I don't know, that's always felt like we haven't seen any cards, especially in other card games either, that do the same thing, that they actually acknowledge mill.
Well,
but everybody says mill.
Yeah. Every other card game uses our word mill.
Yeah.
And people are like, what does this even mean? Well, go back to this other card game that you're not playing, Magic the Gathering.
Right. And like mill has gotten like to the point where it's like in all these other games where other people use it.
I can't believe that it took this long, honestly. Like, it seems so obvious, like such an obvious thing to keyword, because that's literally what everyone calls. I think even the newest of new players and casual players know the term mill and use the term mill because new players love mill for some reason. It's just like one of their favorite things to do. So it's actually, if anything, surprising to me that it took this long to actually have it keyworded. So I think it's a really good choice. I also kind of like the card. I played many Sphinx's Tutelage decks back when Sphinx's Tutelage was in standard. Anything that just lets you win the game by drawing cards is my kind of card to build around, and that is what Teferi's Tutelage does. So I would not be surprised if we played some Teferi's Tutelage decks at some point.
I definitely think this could be a sideboard card for standard. But for right now, I don't think this is Sphinx's Tutelage. Not having that activated ability kind of like is a bummer, because that was the huge draw for me. Like late game, that activated ability means that I could draw more cards anyways, and it fed itself, right?
That is true. It is missing. I mean, that ability was really expensive. I think it was like 6 mana or something, but it is missing that late game value for sure. Although I do like that you get the loot up front with Teferi's Tutelage, which kinda is less of a downside. Like if you have too many copies, you can potentially like loot one away or something. So that is an upside, I guess, that you get the ETB loot.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have a green mythic. And it saddens me that I'm going to ask if this is playable or not. Elder Gargarith, 3 green, 6/6. So 5 mana, 6/6. Vigilance, Reach, Trample. When it attacks or blocks, choose one. Create a 3/3 green beast creature token. You gain 3 life or draw a card.
Nope.
Is this standard playable?
Yeah.
Nope.
I don't think so.
Here we are. It even has Reach, guys.
It really is crazy. If you read that card in the amount of text on it and the amount of things it can do, it's really crazy to think that it's not playable, but I just don't think it is. Like, especially in our current format where there's like Teferis and there's Heartless X and there's Elspeth Conquers Death and there's Brazen Borrowers. 5 mana things that need to stay on the battlefield to do anything important are just not playable. So when this card was spoiled, I looked at the 50 most played cards in standard. How many cards, creatures, do you think out of those 50 that cost more than 4 mana and don't do something immediately actually see play in standard?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm going to play Cavalier in place of this. Right,
Yeah.
Any
Lovestruck
Cavalier.
Beast.
Yeah,
like, cause that was just like a 3 mana 5/5, right?
If this had haste, I would be all about it. I think that
if
is
this
the
had
ability
haste.
that it's missing. If it had haste, I would be all about this card being great. But without haste, I think you're just setting yourself up to be miserable. I know I will build a deck around this and I'll play it and my opponent will Brazen Borrower it, and then the next turn I'll play it and then they'll Teferi it, and then finally the third turn they'll Elspeth Conquers Death it, and then my head will explode on Arena because I conceded.
because you play the same Elder Gargaroth.
Yes, I will
over 3 turns.
Yes, just gotta keep trying, because if I ever attack, look out.
You know, when I saw the spoiled, I was surprised. I assumed it had haste because I was like, well, it's in green, and with all things green, it's probably also going to have protection from blue. And so, and then when I realized it didn't have haste or protection from blue, green, and every other color, like in Magic, I was like, oh, this is actually not that good.
Yeah, it gets blocked by Titans. Like, can they not make it like an 8/8 or something? Like, if you're gonna make this like green vanilla beater that dies to Doomblade, at least like give it some stats like beyond the 5 mana 6/6. Like, do we have like a vanilla common that's like a 5 mana 6/6 or something? Like, I feel like these stats are actually under the curve for green by a lot now.
Yeah.
And then these abilities like Vigilance, who blocks, right? Like Reach, like who blocks, right? Trample's okay, but does it have Death Touch, right? Like, I don't know, right? Like, everything is bigger. All the Titans.
This should be an 8/8 or like even since it doesn't have haste and protection from 500 different things, it should just be like a 9/9, right? At this point,
It's
I feel
also
it could be anything and it would be played. What if it was like a 12/12? Would you play it?
if it was a 20/20, people probably would. If it was one shot kill. I also think it's hilarious that Uro basically does everything that this does when it enters the battle. Like, you get the life gain and the card
both.
draw, and you put a land into play when it comes into play. When this, you get to choose one, and you have to untap with it.
Poor Elder Gargareth. Okay.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Llanowar Visionary. 2 and a green, 2/2. It's a common creature, elf, druid. When Llanowar Visionary enters the battlefield, draw a card. Tap, add a green mana.
It's literally Llanowar Elves stapled to Elvish Visionary.
They mutated. They mutated Llanowar Elf and Elvish Visionary. And here we
You
are.
can't curve. You can't curve like that. I mean, of course you go 1-drop, 2-drop, but like, is this good?
I'll play in Yarok. It's good in Yarok, I think.
Okay.
But as far as like seeing competitive standard play, I doubt it. I don't know.
I mean,
3
we
mana
still
draw
have-
card creatures don't see play, and 3 mana mana dorks don't see play. Does mashing them together give you a card that'll see play?
You still sometimes see that 2/1 elemental wizard that ETBs and then draws a card, the blue one. It does fly.
Okay. Do people actually play that? Like Cloudfin Seer or whatever it is?
Yeah. Like I've seen that. I mean, outside of like an elementals deck, probably not. But like,
Okay.
but I have seen that card get played.
And I guess I've seen the Death Touch mana dork see play, like the Golgari 3-drop one that has Death Touch and Lifelink. That's a 3 mana dork that sees play.
Yeah.
On fringe, in fringe decks, but still, once in a while.
You
Right.
can ramp yourself into Yorion to pay 3 to put it in your hand and then blink to draw a card.
This is the perfect curve after you play a Boreal Grazer.
I think I would play this in like pretty much every elf commander deck though.
Oh yeah.
Like I think in that context it's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Standard is tough.
I don't know. Maybe it is good, right? Maybe. I don't think it is personally. I think it's just like okay, but who knows? Maybe this is like the most broken thing ever. Just because when we think about other things and in that mana cost slot that exists right now in standard, I just don't think it does enough.
I think it asks an interesting question though. Like, if you could take any 2 magic cards and mutate them together, where you get both abilities but also both mana costs added together, what would be the best option?
Ancestral Recall Black Lotus.
Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe we need some bannings in this game because
Lies Eye Diamond. All right. Next up, we have Gadrock, the Crown Scourge. 2 and a red. Legendary creature, dragon at rare, 5/4, flying. Gadrock can't attack unless you control 4 more artifacts. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn.
I like this. I don't know how easy it is to like get the 4 artifacts in standard, but I am thinking along the lines of something like in historic, where you can play like the Tempered Steel decks. And instead of going blue-white, you go white-red.
Are you gonna like Gadwick or Gadrak and then just like Ornithopter, attack for 5?
Like gingerbread cookie, ornithopter, like gargoyle thing. I don't know.
I do like though that this is a pretty good blocker. Like even if it takes you a while to turn it on, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Rotting Regisaur, how you can bring it in from the sideboard maybe to have like this big body, and then if you're playing some sort of like Rakdos or Mardu style mid-range deck, maybe you can just get there by killing stuff. Like, just killing your opponent's creatures, eventually you get 4 treasures and can go from defense to offense and start, like, beating down. Like, if you can turn it on, a 5/4 flyer for 3 is pretty above the curve, even by 2020 standards.
And you know what? If it gets, if they cast Claim the Firstborn on it... You're safe unless they have 4 artifacts. But
They probably
like,
have four witches ovens.
Yeah, if they perfectly have 4 witches ovens, well then you low rolled. You know what I mean? Like that sucks.
I mean, that's the other thing though, is food tokens can turn this on. That's the other
Right.
idea. I was wondering, like, could this be playing like Jund Sacrifice, where you have food tokens to turn it on, and it makes treasure tokens when you're sacrificing your cats, and then those treasure tokens can be sacrificed to trigger your Mayhem Devils and to ramp into like your top end stuff if you want to, like Corvald and whatnot. Could it be
Yeah.
like a synergy piece in a deck like that? Maybe.
That's where I see it if it were to get played.
Yeah, I think it's real because you go like oven. Every cat you sacrifice is now a creature, a treasure token with Gadrick. You have Gilded Goose, you have Corvold, and then like you said, the treasure token sacrifice and ping with Mayhem Devil. So I think this is actually pretty good. It's like a big beater, and then also it's a combo piece. So I actually think it's really good in the Jund Sacrifice deck, depending on if there's stuff you can cut out of that deck to fit it. But I feel it's more of that than like 4 Ornithopters because
Because
I
then
don't
you'd
know.
be playing 4 Ornithopters.
Tempered Steel is I think
So you
pretty
could play.
fun.
There are
So I
artifact decks in standard, right? You could play like an All Is Glitters deck, right, with Gingerbread Man, Stone Coil Serpent. We're gonna talk about Spark Hunter Masticore, but there are artifacts that you can actually just play a pretty legit artifact aggro deck, and Stone Coil Serpent is like MVP of standard, right? Like immune to everything, right? So we could do that and then just kill like 1 or 2 creatures to get the rest of your treasures and then go to town. So I could see it in that kind of aggro deck as well.
So mono green Tron. Nissa Tron is back also, by the way. You could do that if you want. Green red, so then you can play this. Because we got a lot of some new artifacts and colorless cards, so
All
yeah,
right,
like
let's talk about Spark Hunter Mastercore. 3 mana, artifact creature Mastercore. It's a rare. It's a 3/4. As an additional cost to cast the spell, discard a card. Protection from Planeswalker. 1 generic. Spark Hunter deals 1 damage to target Planeswalker. 3 generic. Gains indestructible until end of turn.
I can finally talk about this card after now it's been revealed, and I will say that, oh my gosh. No, Sweet Teferi, you cannot touch this card. The protection from Planeswalker is pretty interesting, and the fact that it pays 1 to deal more damage to Planeswalkers. Like, this card is definitely living up to its name in hunting down Sparks. But like, holy cow, and it has indestructible? Like, I like, let's be honest here, that additional cost is not a thing to me. I don't even acknowledge that as an additional cost. But like, I do think this card is really, really good, and it's a 3/4. So it doesn't just get like Oath of Kayed.
Yeah, I mean, it's got good stats, and it is good at taking out Planeswalkers, especially, like, you mentioned Teferi, but the other War of the Spark Planeswalkers it lines up pretty well against, or really any Planeswalker that down ticks, you can probably snipe it pretty efficiently. So, I don't know, as a 3/4, maybe it's efficient enough that you can just main deck this, but yeah, I mean, worst case, it feels like a good answer to Planeswalker heavy decks. Like, this is a card to fight against all those War of the Spark decks that are still in the format for another 3 months.
Yeah, and like, once again, like, if they untap with this, then it really gets you in this awkward spot where it's like, it feels bad, right? If I have to play, I can't even play, like, let's just say in this case, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, or the new Teferi, Master of Time, and like phase it out, right? Because it has protection from it. So, like, if they untap with it, then any Planeswalker you play will just be a, whatever, 5 mana, draw 1 card. You know what I mean? Or it's gonna feel pretty bad.
Yeah, I think this is meta warping. Maybe not warping, but it will change the meta. You can no longer just play like dirtily control decks and rely on Planeswalkers for value, because this thing will murder you. Like, you can't even remove it and then play your Planeswalker, because you can give it indestructible. It needs to be a very specific like exile or bounce or something. But even a bounce doesn't help if you're trying to play a Planeswalker. So I think this is like the ultimate Planeswalker sniper. And there are so many Planeswalkers in standard right now. It's also a 3/4, so it attacks through or blocks Nissa land tokens.
Yes.
So I actually think this is pretty, like, if you if you're playing a lot of Planeswalkers and you see this it's like a Carnage Tyrant, right? You're like, oh my god, right?
Yeah,
like this is big troubles, right? You're gonna have sideboard slots dedicated to dealing with this thing if you're playing a Planeswalker heavy deck, which a lot of decks in Standard in recent history have played. So I think this is actually a really good card. And then in the fair matchup, it's like, right? It's like, so it's kind of balanced, right? If you run up against a questing beast, you're like, I'm a little sad.
Well, you still get to block it and then give it like indestructible potentially, right?
I mean, you had to 2-for-1 yourself to cast this thing.
Yeah.
And 3 mana is actually a lot for indestructible. Like that's kind of the other thing. Like I don't know if you can just leave up 3 mana every turn to do that. I mean, I guess if we got nothing else going on, but it is inexpensive.
What if you play this and then you put an All's Glitters on it?
Yeah.
But it's like make your own Bogle, right? Sure.
But you probably had to discard your All That Glitters to cast this, so
No, you discarded some bad artifact to get back with Emily.
The Ornithopter. But then your Gadrak is never going to attack because you discarded the Ornithopter.
I think this card is like definitely amazing. And it gets around a lot of stuff, and Elspeth Conquers Death just got a lot better.
Better
than being the best card in Standard somehow. It's up to 11.
It went from tier 1 to tier 0.
All right, next up we have Chromatic Orrery. 7 mana, legendary artifact, mythic rare. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. Tap to add 5 colorless, 5 and tap. Draw a card for each colored among permanents you control.
I swear that every time Wizards makes a set that they have a slot that's 7 mana mythic that is just designed to like break Commander, essentially, like the Commander staple slot. We had Nyxbloom Ancient, we have Chromatic Orrery, we had Zendikar Resurgent not that long ago. This is just like a busted Commander card, right? Don't you just...
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're 1 color or 2 colors, it's bad. Obviously, if you can, like, reanimate it with, I don't know, some artifact reanimation type thing, it's really good. But I feel like if you're 3 to 5 colors, this is just absurd. It's absolutely just, like, bonkers and insane.
Why? I'm confused. As a fair card or as a combo piece?
It taps to add 5 mana. It fixes your mana as good as it could
5 colorless.
Be fixed. Well,
which is
it's
not 5, as good considering you're trying to play a 5 color deck. But your mana goes
but you spend your mana as though it's mana of any color. So it's actually 5 mana of any combination of colors.
Oh, I'm an idiot.
It's pretty disgusting. And it doesn't even enter tapped. It doesn't enter tapped, which I thought it would.
So it's like...
But I realized...
Gilded Lotus in the sense that if you get to 7 mana, it kind of only costs 2 mana because you immediately get back 5 mana, so you get that same rate, kind of.
And then you twiddle it.
You could potentially draw immediately, right? If you have enough mana, like obviously, but like this, I think this is pretty sweet. Like you can't draw off itself, but the thing here is like,
What about Standard though? Like I expect this to see a lot of play in like 5 color Commander decks and even 4 and 3 color decks. Can this do anything in Standard, or is it just like too expensive? Gilded Lotus didn't really see play when it was in Standard. Nyxbloom Ancient hasn't really done anything competitive in Standard. Obviously, it makes a lot of mana. Is that enough for it to show up in any Standard deck?
Mana for your cards, Seth, in 2020?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
In this year? We don't pay for our spells. This is unplayable. No, I do not think this will see play in Standard. No. Will people play it? Yes.
For fun, yeah. Or maybe like Niv decks. I think that's the one deck I could see. If you're playing Niv, like tapping this to draw 5, not that Niv needs to draw more cards, but that does sound pretty fun.
On top, that's the dream, right? Like pay 5, draw 5, but like outside of like that situation, what am I gonna draw off that anyways? More Chromatic Orreries?
Knowing Wizards. It'll be a card in the set that's like a 2 mana 2/2. When it attacks, you can drop any artifact in your hand into play.
I mean, you could put it into play with Purphoros, I guess, right? Or no, it's artifact creature, right? Oh man, yeah.
But it's too slow.
I don't think this gets played in Standard. However, in Commander, I could see me playing this even just in a 2-color deck, legitimately.
Yeah,
it's good enough, right? Like the first part, spending mana as any color. Getting 5 mana, but on top of that, paying 5 mana to draw 2 and not sack it is pretty good.
Oh yeah, I mean, and if you're paying 5 mana to draw 5 and you can do that every turn in like some 5 color Commander deck, that's an insane rate. Like that is super, super powerful. Yeah.
It goes from
really good.
okay to just insane. So like, yeah, I think this just definitely makes it into Commander.
All right. Next up, we have Pack Leader, 1 in a white, rare creature dog. 2/2. Other dogs you control get +1/+1. Whenever Pack Leader attacks, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn to dogs you control.
It finally happened, by the way, just for everybody listening, that hounds have been errata to dogs.
So all hounds in the history of Magic
Tanaros
are
is
dogs.
a dog. And I mean, like the whole dog change is something that I've been waiting for because I've always been wondering, why do we have hounds and not dogs? This makes me sad. But like Pack Leader specifically, I mean, let's be honest here. Are there good hounds?
I think that is my concern. I think for me, dogs remind me a lot of cats, where Wizards just made dogs now. And there are a few hounds in Magic's history that'll get their errata. But if you look at when cats really started to get support around like Amonkhet, it took like 2 or 3 years of support for them to really get to a point where you can kind of build a pioneer modern cat deck that isn't, it's not a joke. It's not tier 1 by any stretch, but you can build like a pretty reasonable deck. I think that Pack Leader is a powerful lord, but it doesn't really have the tribe to back it up yet. I think it's one of those cards that you're gonna have to wait for like 2 or 3 years worth of dog sets until eventually there's enough dogs to actually make it good.
So look at the art. Look at the magnificent dog there. Does that dog not look like it could lead wolves? Why are wolves not dogs?
I don't know if it can lead wolves. Although I notice all the dogs in the background. That's pretty cute.
Wolves and dogs together would be interesting. And
I feel so only hounds became dogs. Wolves are still their own thing. But like that is what would complete your dog tribe for free, I guess, right? Like you would have enough wolves and dogs to like make a canine tribal deck. But as of now, there aren't that many dogs. The dogs we have are kind of dodgy. I guess in standard we have the Orzhov one. What's his name?
Kunaros.
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 Yeah. The graveyard one. But this thing is like unbeatable in comp. Like you just attack and like none of your dogs take damage, right? So it's pretty obnoxious to play against if you are a creature deck. I guess like what is your counterplay? You block and then attack back and try to kill them because you can't kill any of the dogs in combat. So this is not legendary, so they stack with each other. So you can have 4 pack leaders on the battlefield. So interesting. I think lots of people will force a dog deck. People will try to. They will alter their dog cards to be of their dog. So I think this makes like for a very fun card in Magic. So I like where it's going.
And the change is really good. Like the change is overdue, if anything. People love cats. Like I'm always surprised at just looking at like cat commander decks. Cats are like literally one of the most popular tribes to build in Commander, and they're not even like that good or any. You don't build cats in Commander because you're trying to like CEDH your way to like some wins. You're doing it because you really love cats. So I feel like having dogs be a supported tribe is like a huge positive, because as much as people love cats, there's the other group that really loves their dogs. So I think giving that group like something to build is actually like just a huge upside for Magic in general.
I can't believe it just took this long.
I still can't believe we don't have wolves. We don't have a dog. Like for some reason, Leonin are cats, right? They're like humanoid, but like we can't get wolves and dogs into the same grouping. Like, come on. Like we need a canine super type or something, or a dog planeswalker. That's what we need. A dog planeswalker.
Johnny can almost be confused for a dog planeswalker.
All right. Next up, we have Mangara the Diplomat. 3 white, 2/4, mythic, legendary creature, human cleric, lifelink. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, draw a card.
I think like from a design point, I think this card is great. It's perfect, right? Like white now they found a way to get white to get card draw. I think that's pretty cool. I also like that it's a 2/4, so it's not easily like killable, like just by a shock or a bolt or something like that. has lifelink. I mean, that's great. And it's not like, and the cost on it is like 3 in a white as opposed to like 2 in double white, or even better, like triple white in like 1. So I think the card is all around pretty cool. I don't know if it gets played in standard, but I think this is really good in Commander.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think when I first saw it, I was like, oh, maybe in standard it could be like a sideboard card against mono red, but then they revealed Baneslayer, and I was like, if I'm a white deck that wants a sideboard card against mono red, it's probably going to be Baneslayer instead of Mangara. But in Commander, I think this is kind of just a staple. Like when you have 4 opponents and no one's going to be like, oh, I'm only going to cast 1 spell this turn because you're going to get to draw a card. No one's going to not cast the stuff they want to cast to keep you from drawing a card. You're going to draw hopefully multiple cards each turn cycle, and white is so hard up for card draw. It's just like so bad at drawing cards. I feel like this is just almost an auto include in any mono white deck.
So
I think
the exciting
any deck that plays white, right, would just want this.
I mean, if you're blue-white, you probably can draw cards more. I don't know. I think multicolored decks, I wonder, like, is this good enough card draw that I would play it over, like, blue card draw? I'm
it's
not
also
sure.
a crawl space or whatever, right? Like people will be less likely to attack you with multiple creatures because you draw a card. So
That's
it has
true.
that taxing effect. But
Yeah.
they said that anything that white has that says like you can't do X is now fair game for them to say, when you do X, draw a card. So basically like the opposite of a tax effect. So instead of the tax effect, if they do it, you draw a card, which opens white up for lots and lots and lots of card draws. Like Rhystic Study or something could have been white. So that tells me like Commander Legends, like all the other sets coming down the line, we're going to have a lot of white card draw based on these kind of like taxing conditional effects.
I think that's a really good way to handle white card draw too. Like
Yeah.
this card feels white to me. I know white, some people like, white's not supposed to be able to draw cards. Whatever. Like it's 2020. White can draw cards if it wants to. We need it for Commander. But, I feel like that's a very white way to handle it. It feels very on flavor with ghostly prisons and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like if you're gonna give white card draw, this is probably the way to go.
Yeah. I can definitely see something like this down the line too. It's like if an opponent activates a planeswalker, you draw a card.
Yep. I mean, I don't like this because it's gonna be so OP because there'll be people like Seth that like never pay the tax.
Yeah, I was gonna
so,
say
like, these things just go out of control. They're like, oh man, yeah.
I was
whatever,
gonna
right?
say that because like Seth's like nobody's gonna just play one spell. Like it's like, well, you are speaking from the point of view where you literally never pay the one, you never pay for any, like you never pay for your treasure tokens.
Yeah, add it to the list of taxes that I will never play in Commander.
They have a Mangara, whatever. Here you go. I'm gonna storm off.
Yes, attack you with 2 creatures.
Yes, attack you with 2 and then cast second spell.
All right, real quick, we have a list of reprints that are coming to Core Set 2021. We have Grim Tutor, we have
Yes.
Containment Priest,
Nice.
first time in Standard, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, because
Yes.
Krim asked for more ramp payoffs in
Yep,
Historic
love it.
Standard.
Can't wait for that Nissa into that Ugin.
Baneslayer Angel,
Nice to fry.
Rewind, Solemn Simulacrum, and Azusa, Lost But Seeking.
Oh boy, there we go. That's the one. That's
So I
where my
heard you want
sadness-
ramp. We could just ramp like forever, like Azusa into Solemn, into Ugin, Uro in there, put some Nissas, like why not?
Before the Zendikar set, by the way. So I think of all of those, right? Like, yes, some of those reprints are pretty insane. Like, obviously, Baneslayer. I don't know if Baneslayer is what it once was, especially when cards like Fry are in the format. Because, like, if we're boarding it in against red deck to take out red decks, they'll just go, okay, Fry. And then, like, you paid 5 mana and they traded it for 2, right? Like, so, but on top of that, like, I think the biggest reprint for me is going to be Ugin and Azusa. Why? Because they probably are going in the same deck. And, so I am not exactly excited to see Azusa hit the format because ramp we were talking about last week, we don't need Uro to, like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't need all this ramp between Growth Spiral, Uro. Oh my gosh. If you untap with a Nissa, and then of course, now you've got Azusa and Ugin. Like, holy cow. Like, ramp players that, like, will now actually have an embarrassment of riches, right? Like, they have so many things that help them ramp.
I think it's that embarrassment of riches that makes me not very afraid of Azusa at the moment, just because there's so many, like, growth spirals and Uros. I don't even know if you'll play Azusa, honestly. Like, the ramp is already so insane and so good. I kind of wonder if Azusa is just, like, not quite as good as the rest of the ramp that's in the format. I mean, after rotation, maybe things will change, but I think I'm personally way more scared of Ugin. Last time Ugin was in Standard, it was kind of medium and showed up in fringe decks, but it definitely didn't dominate the format.
No, it was played in blue-black control.
Yeah, so okay, it showed up in some decks, let's say, but it wasn't like the best card in Standard by any stretch. It was more like certain decks would play a copy or two, but that was a few years ago, and it was much harder to get to 8 mana a few years ago than it is today, when decks get to 8 mana really quickly and really consistently. So I am like legitimately scared of Ugin. On the other hand,
Ugin is a 5-drop.
Basically, yes.
Ugin's a 5-drop.
I'm legitimately excited for Containment Priest. That's a card that I've wanted, especially in Modern, for a long time. It hates on a lot of things in the format, and it actually hates on a lot of things in Standard. A little less so, maybe with the most recent bannings.
Winota.
But there's still Winotas, and there's still some other, like, Cauldron Familiars and so forth that are doing shenanigans, reanimation style effects, and whatnot. So I feel like Containment Priest is definitely going to be a sweet reprint. And then obviously Grim Tutor was like a $220 card. I think it's the most expensive reprint we've ever had in a Standard legal set period. Do you think that Grim Tutor is good? Either one of you?
No. like for Standard, definitely not. I don't think it gets played in like Pioneer, does it? Because
I'm kind of skeptical. Like, I was thinking that maybe like certain combo decks like would Ad Nauseam in Modern want it, or maybe like Inverter, and I'm not even sure that those decks want it. And it doesn't currently see much playing Commander, although that's maybe partly because it's $200 some and you can buy Diabolic Tutor for 50 cents. If it's cheap, maybe it picks up in play, but I expect the price to get it's still like $60 for the reprinted version. I expect
it's 60 now?
Yeah, it's still 60 now. I expect it to go way down.
It's not going to stay that.
Yeah.
I think if this gets played anywhere, it's going to be in Commander. And like, it won't be like $60. I think it is Mythic. That is the difference, right? Between like, some of the reprints that are like, example, like Idyllic Tutor at a point was like moderately pricey. Yeah. But then, now it's like a $5 card, but that's because it's a rare and whatnot. And I think this at Mythic will make it sit somewhere between like, I don't know, like $10 to $15 after it's released.
That sounds about right to me, because the current price of the original, it's mostly because it was in Starter 99, which is like just a notoriously low supply set. So it's more that the supply is tiny than the demand is super high. So I too expect it to drop down under $20 for sure. So if you're wanting Grim Tutor for Commander or something, I would keep waiting and not snap it off during pre-sales. Wait a little bit, because the price should drop a lot from where it is now.
Yeah. However, playability wise, I don't know. Like, is there anything that really wants this in Standard? No. I don't think it really gets played, to be honest with you.
Unless a combo deck develops.
People play the 2 mana 1/4, the Fae of Wishes. This is 1 mana less.
Well, that goes from your sideboard, though.
Yeah.
It was effectively the same thing, though, right? You have like a toolbox somewhere where you want to tutor up your Silver Bullet.
But that's way different when you're using your sideboard. And on top of that, because it's also a 1/4 body for 2 mana, you could also deploy it as an early threat against aggro, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is just...
This one you get to pay 3 life.
Yeah. Woo! Aggro's like, yeah, let's go for that again. Like...
I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
Containment Priest, if you phase in, do you still phase in? You don't enter the battlefield, right?
Yeah,
so you're safe phasing in with Containment Priest,
safe,
right?
Yeah. It technically doesn't enter the battlefield, so...
Yeah.
All right. So Teferi and Containment Priest is not a combo.
No, it is not. But
before we leave, there's one card which we forgot, which I think is pretty important, which is Eliminate. 1 in a black, uncommon instant. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 3 or less.
So this is like their answer. Plunge, right? I think is the name of the card or whatever, to answer War of the Spark. All right, cool. I think this is pretty sweet, but I don't know. Like, not killing something higher than CMC3 is kind of an interesting spot, right? I mean, there's no, even now when you have Heartless Act, I think I still might want to play Heartless Act. I don't know. I like Plunge. I do because it hits Planeswalkers. But do I like the fact that it doesn't kill like a questing beast, a shifting Ceratops, soon to be, other problematic creatures? I don't know. There's so many things at 4 CMC and greater that I am concerned about, like Cavaliers and whatnot.
I think it's still going to be good. I think it is true that it doesn't have anything or everything, but I think it does hit enough. And I like that it's at least somewhat relevant against control. Like against mono red or other aggro decks, you should always have a good target. And then it's also, unlike Heartless Summoning or whatever, or Heartless Act rather, it's also something that can snipe Teferi or like Narset or something against control. So I'm hoping that the flexibility is enough to make it good. But I do think you are right. It doesn't kill anything, everything. And I think you are going to need other removal spells in support of it. I don't know if I would be comfortable with this being my like primary removal spell in most decks, but I think there's definitely a home for it in standard and potentially in like Pioneer / Modern too.
In Modern, I could see a little of this being a lot better. I'm like strictly speaking standard, I think this is a card where I don't even play a full 4 Heartless Acts, right? Because that's still conditional. So like I'd play maybe 2 of these. And I guess you could do a 2-2 split or something like that, but yeah, not a 4 of. This isn't a 4 of for me.
It kills Titans.
It does kill Titans, but you know what
dodges it? Whatever that bad mythic queen you talked
about.
Yeah.
I already forgot that card got announced because it already was written off immediately. Yeah.
I mean, it is a thing, right? Like in Modern, the secret CMC is 4. Like when you play a 5 CMC creature, it's like indestructible. Like no one can deal with it, right? Because it dodges Fatal Push. So if people start playing this, but I don't know that people will play this though, because I feel Teferi is going to get a downtick. It's like, you really want this to kill 3 Fairy. And even then it's like not that good at killing 3 Fairy because they probably played 3 Fairy. They bounced up and drew a card. And then you came along and did this. You're like, well, it's better than nothing. It's better than letting Teferi live. But with Spark Hunter Masticore and other things like that, like I feel 3 Fairy will be in check. So this card will not be as good. But it does snipe like Love Struck Beasts, Titans, things like that. So it still has a lot of valid targets. So I think I agree with you guys. There will be a split between this and Heartless Act. You're not going to go all in on this, but I do think it'll see play. Kills Leon of the Veil.
Oh, yeah.
Oko, which is another huge
Ren
one
and
in older
6.
formats like Legacy.
Ren and 6.
And as you get to older formats, a much higher percentage of creatures are converted mana cost 3 or less compared to standard, where you have more 4 and 5 drops.
Tarmogoyf, Richard, you have even less of a reason to play your
This
Tarmogoyf.
literally kills everything in Judd now, right? You're like, no. No.
Hey, but now I get to suffer with you, right? Because now you kill my 3 fairies.
No.
I'm still playing them, but
Please.
Tarmogoyf.
It's like eliminate brackets Jund from Modern. Nah, Jund was bad already. We didn't need eliminate. All right. We're running long, so I think that's all the previews we want to talk about. Any last thoughts you guys want to add about Core Set 2021 so far?
This set seems amazing. Holy cow.
I think it's
Outside of that green card, this seems amazing.
I think it's gonna go down as maybe the best core set of the modern era, at least. Like they seem like they pulled out all the stops with reprints, high value stuff. The new cards seem real powerful. So yeah, I am super excited. I'm more excited now than I was a week ago before we knew what was in this set. It seems like they're really nailing it with Core Set 2021.
It feels a bit like a master set, and but without the master's pricing. So I think everyone is on board with that. All of the new cards are high power level. They're not like, oh, these are for beginners. They're like, how about phasing beginners, right? So it's just like a normal set with like a lot of high value reprints. So I actually think it is a home run, and we need this after the double masters. And I predict Commander Legends coming up will maybe not be so popular given their design decisions with double masters. So this feels like a Commander Masters set, kind of, with all the cards they're throwing in here. So I think it's pretty good.
Are we going to fish mail today, or are we going to hold that for next week since we're running a bit long?
I'll sneak in one fish mail.
All right.
If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. IR Baboon, you get the one fish mill we're talking about this week. With mill as a new keyword, do you think Wizards should add loot, rummage, and others as a keyword? What keywords could be useful here?
Looting is pretty cool, right? Because then it means that you don't have to like type that out every time. But like, or type out like the whole draw a card, discard a card. But I mean, you still have to actually put the reminder text actually. So never mind.
Yeah, she just gets longer.
Yeah, then it's all you've done is just make it longer.
I think the question is like, what percentage of players are familiar with the term? I think mill is one that is a very high percentage. Looting is probably pretty high. Rummage, that is probably like a lot lower. So I think for it to be keyworded, for these like evergreen type mechanics, I think it's got to be something that like basically the entire community always uses. So I'm sure there's some other cases I could maybe be convinced on loot possibly, but I think it's something you got to use a light touch on, or it actually makes cards more confusing and more wordy if you have to keep doing the reminder text over and over and over again because people don't understand what it means.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like these things should be keyword. I think the hesitation with mill is there is no lore based reasoning for mill. You're like, what is that? Like, what does that even mean?
Millstone.
Right? It's like, oh, because, yeah, but that's not like from the world. Like, it's not a verb from the world of Magic, right? Same with like looting. Like, that's Merfolk Looter, but like loot means like stealing. Like, what? How does it mean like draw and discard, right? So I think that's the hesitation Wizards uses. But like things like Scry, right? Scry was keyworded recently. Before then, we had to say, look at the top card of your library, blah, 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 blah. And it was like very complicated. So looting, I think, should be a keyword, but maybe like whether they use the actual word loot or not is up for debate. But given that a lot of Magic players know the word loot, I think just use it like mill. But I think it's the lore aspect of it that is causing problems rather than the effect. Because every set we have like a looting effect. Every set we have a rummage effect. And then the exile you may cast until end of turn that doesn't have a word. Like we have that all the time. So it would be just cleaner if we had a single word to describe that.
Actually, that's a great thing right there, Richard, that you pointed out. I think that should have a word for it. Like the whole like exile and cast from, like, you know what I mean? You have until next turn to cast it. That whole thing.
I'm surprised Magic players haven't come up with the word for it. Like what is the closest, what is the first card that ever had that? Or like, it's like Chandra, generic ability. Like what do you even call it?
I don't know if I've ever heard anyone call it anything interesting.
Yeah, like you know what, that is something that should get a name though.
That would be, I would like a name for that, a mechanic.
Yeah, but the problem is there's some that is like until end of turn, until your next turn, until like there's all these variables on it. So we'll have to come up with like loot and rummage, the two partner keywords. All right. That's all the time we have for questions this week. A little short on the fish mail since we had a lot of spoilers. So we'll be back with fish mail next week. Be sure to send them in to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 280 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard Grimm, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk more M21 spoilers and about whatever else goes down in the world of Magic. So until then, have a wonderful week, and this is the crew signing out.